Welcome to the Redline Politics. Stay ahead of the headlines. Subscribe now and never miss the next big clash. The stage was set. Bright lights beamed down from above, cameras zoomed in, and the audience buzzed with a restless energy that only comes before a clash of giants. Everyone knew this debate would be heated, but no one could have predicted just how far it would go, or how one single moment of silence would end up making the biggest noise of all. On one side of the stage sat Elon Musk, a man larger than life, a figure who needs no introduction. Tech mogul, billionaire innovator, a personality so powerful that his words can send stocks soaring or crashing in a matter of minutes. Musk doesn't just participate in conversations, he dominates them. He interrupts, he pushes, he overwhelms. And in the world of public debates, that makes him nearly untouchable. On the other side sat Representative Jasmine Crocket. She wasn't carrying the same global brand name. She didn't have rockets or electric cars under her belt. But what she did carry was presence, a sharp mind, unshakable patience, and a determination not to let her voice be drowned out. She walked onto that stage with no illusions. She knew Musk would try to control the narrative. She knew he would cut her off. She knew the spotlight would lean in his direction. And still, she came ready. The tension started almost immediately. Jasmine began her first point, carefully laying out her argument, when Musk leaned forward, cutting across her words with his booming voice. The crowd chuckled, some even clapped. He was in his element, fast, bold, brash. Jasmine didn't flinch. She just continued. Then it happened again. And again. By the time he interrupted her for the fourth time, the audience had already picked sides. Some were entertained, watching Musk bulldoze his way forward. Others were frustrated, watching Crockett's words sliced to pieces before they could land. And yet, Jasmine's expression never changed. That's the thing about her style. She didn't fight for every second. She didn't waste energy shouting over him. She let him run. She let him dominate. And with each interruption, she grew, calmer, sharper, more deliberate. It was as though she was gathering strength with every attempt to silence her. By the sixth interruption, even the moderators seemed uneasy. Musk was practically steamrolling the conversation, while Jasmine waited patiently, her hands folded, her eyes fixed on him with the kind of composure that unsettles even the most confident opponent. By the seventh interruption, the atmosphere shifted. People weren't just watching a debate anymore. They were watching a power struggle unfold. But here's where things took a turn no one expected. Jasmine wasn't broken. She wasn't flustered. She wasn't even angry. She was waiting for the exact moment to drop her words like a stone into still water, creating ripples too powerful to ignore. That moment arrived on her eighth point. The stage, the cameras, the restless hum of the crowd, all of it faded into the background as she leaned forward, her voice lower, sharper, calmer than it had been all night. Elon had just cut her off again, throwing out another fast statistic, another smirk that said he thought he had already won. But Jasmine didn't raise her volume. She didn't match his energy. She didn't try to beat him at his own game. Instead, she looked directly at him and delivered a line that changed everything. "You can interrupt me all you want," she said slowly, each word landing like the strike of a drum. "But you can't interrupt the truth." And suddenly, silence. Not the kind of silence that comes from awkward pauses. Not the kind that feels like dead air. This was a silence that carried weight. The silence of a man who always had an answer, and for once had none. The silence of a room full of people realizing they had just witnessed a turning point. The silence that made every camera zoom in closer, every viewer lean forward, every headline begin to write itself. In that moment, Jasmine Crocket didn't just speak. She controlled the entire room. She turned Elon Musk's greatest weapon, his interruptions, his dominance, his noise, into his weakness. And for the first time all night, the man who was supposed to have the last word had nothing to say. And that's where the story begins. To really understand why this clash mattered so much, you have to understand who Elon Musk is inside a debate. He doesn't just walk in with confidence, he walks in like the room belongs to him. For years, Musk has thrived on speed. He talks fast, he thinks fast, he throws out numbers and predictions so rapidly that opponents rarely get a chance to breathe. It's a strategy built on pressure. Overwhelm your rival before they can even build their argument. And for a while, it seemed to be working here too. Each time Jasmine Crocket opened her mouth, Musk cut in. He had a counter ready, a statistic waiting, a sarcastic smile to brush her words aside. The audience laughed when he laughed. They clapped when he threw in a sharp remark. On the surface, it looked like Musk had the upper hand, and many people thought Jasmine wouldn't last the night against him. But Jasmine didn't come to play Elon's game. She came to play her own. Her strength wasn't speed, it was patience. While Musk fired off interruptions, she stayed still. While he threw numbers like a scattergun, she delivered words like arrows. Slow, steady, direct. She wasn't trying to win the audience with flashy comebacks. She was trying to pierce through the noise with something stronger. Clarity. The tension in the room kept building. By the fifth interruption, people weren't just entertained anymore. They were uncomfortable. You could see it on the moderators' faces, the way they shifted in their chairs, unsure of whether to step in. Musk wasn't debating anymore. He was steamrolling. And Jasmine? She let him. It might have looked like weakness to some, but it wasn't. It was strategy. Think about it. Every time Musk jumped in, every time he cut her off, the crowd leaned in a little closer. They wanted to see how she would respond. They wanted to know if she would break, and Jasmine knew it. She let the tension simmer because she understood something critical. When patience finally snaps back, it lands twice as hard. The dynamic was fascinating to watch. On one hand, you had Elon Musk. Restless, eager, feeding off the crowd's energy, trying to dominate through sheer volume. On the other, Jasmine Crocket, calm, collected, her silence almost daring him to keep talking. It was a clash not of voices, but of strategies. And by the seventh interruption, the shift was undeniable. The audience wasn't laughing anymore. They weren't clapping at Musk's interruptions. They were waiting to see if Jasmine would finally unleash what she had been holding back. She adjusted her microphone. She leaned forward just slightly, her expression cool but unshakable. She didn't need to raise her voice. She didn't need to match Musk's fire, because she knew that when she spoke, really spoke, the entire room would feel it. And that's exactly what she was preparing to do. The debate had turned into more than just an exchange of points. It had become a battle between two worlds, the world of power that talks the loudest and the world of truth that speaks the clearest. The interruptions weren't just about cutting off words. They were about control. Musk was fighting to own the conversation. But Crocket? She was about to remind everyone that sometimes the most powerful move isn't fighting for space. It's waiting for the right moment to take it all back. Every interruption Musk threw at her only added more weight to her eventual response. It was like watching someone pull back an arrow further and further, building tension until the release would be impossible to stop. And as the seventh interruption faded into silence, you could almost feel the arrow about to fly. The stage was ready. The audience was restless. The moderators looked torn between stepping in or letting the drama unfold. Musk smirked, convinced he had already won. And Jasmine Crocket? She was seconds away from delivering her eighth point, the one that would change everything. The air in the room had shifted. Up until now, it was fiery exchanges, sharp comebacks, and the kind of tension that keeps audiences glued to their screens. But when Jasmine Crocket leaned forward for her seventh attempt, her voice carried something different, measured, deliberate, but with an undercurrent of authority that even Elon Musk couldn't brush aside with his usual interruptions. He had tried again, of course. The same quick interjections, the dismissive hand waves, the confident smirk he wore like armor. Yet this time, something about Jasmine's presence didn't waver. She waited, letting his interruption echo into silence, then calmly picked up her thread, refusing to lose her ground. And that's when the atmosphere turned electric. For months, critics had painted Jasmine as passionate but perhaps too raw, too bold, someone who might stumble if pressured long enough. But this moment began to unravel. That narrative. Viewers watching live could feel the dynamic changing, one side no longer fully in control. Elon's face betrayed a flicker of unease, as if he realized the back and forth wasn't playing out on his terms anymore. Then came the 8th point. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't rush. Instead, she lowered her tone, looked straight at him, and laid down a statement so sharp it sliced through the noise of the entire debate. Suddenly, Elon Musk, yes, the man who dominates boardrooms, headlines, and even Twitter feeds, paused. His lips parted as though ready with another interruption, but no words followed. For the first time that evening, he was silent. It's the kind of silence that carries more weight than 1,000 words. Not the silence of disinterest, but the silence of recognition. Something had landed, something undeniable. And audiences noticed. Chat boxes on live streams flooded instantly. Wait, did he just stop? She shut him down. Replay that part. Clips began circulating in real time, users cutting and reposting the exact second where Musk leaned back, adjusted his tie, and gave that half-smile people wear when they're buying time. It wasn't defeat, but it wasn't control either. What made Jasmine's 8th point so disarming wasn't just the content, it was the delivery. In a debate where interruptions had been the rhythm, her calm persistence created a jarring contrast. It wasn't a clash of volume, it was a clash of presence. She demonstrated that true strength doesn't always roar. It stands steady until the storm burns itself out. For Musk, silence wasn't just unusual, it was historic. This is a man who debates regulators, challenges world leaders, and speaks in front of millions with unapologetic conviction. Yet here he was, momentarily subdued by a congresswoman who refused to be pushed into the chaos of his pace. The media didn't miss it either. Commentators who had been jotting notes about Musk's dominance suddenly shifted their focus. That freeze frame, the look on his face as Jasmine delivered her line, would become the image plastered across social platforms, news outlets, and highlight reels for days to come. But what does this mean beyond the theatrics? In debates, perception is power, and silence, strategic, rare silence, can be more powerful than any word spoken. Jasmine's victory in that instant wasn't about winning an argument with facts alone. It was about changing the tempo, seizing control of the moment, and forcing one of the most influential voices in the world to acknowledge her stance with nothing more than stillness. And here's where the suspense grows thicker. Was that silence a sign of Musk's respect? Or was it the calm before an even bigger storm? Because when a giant like Musk pauses, you can be sure he's calculating his next move. And the audience knew it. They could feel it. Something was about to happen. The stage was no longer just a clash of words. It had become a battle for dominance of narrative itself. And the next round would decide whether Jasmine's silence-inducing point would stand as the night's defining moment, or whether Musk would reclaim his momentum in a way only he knows. How? The cameras zoomed in. The audience leaned forward, and the suspense thickened because everyone knew. The next words spoken would shape not just the debate, but the story that would echo long after the lights went out. The silence didn't last forever. It couldn't. Not with Elon Musk sitting across from Jasmine Crocket under the weight of millions of eyes, cameras capturing every breath, every flicker of expression. He leaned forward, adjusted his jacket, and let out a small chuckle, the kind of laugh people use when they're trying to regain their balance. But everyone watching knew. The moment had already shifted. Jasmine's 8th point wasn't just a line in a debate, it was a turning point etched in real time. When Musk finally spoke again, his tone was different. Gone was the rapid-fire interruption, the dismissive hand wave, the overwhelming presence that had carried him through the earlier parts of the discussion. Instead, his words carried a measured edge, as if he was carefully rebuilding the ground he had just lost. It wasn't weakness. It was strategy. Musk had built an empire on never staying down for long, and this debate would be no exception. But Jasmine wasn't backing away either. Her confidence had doubled, her composure sharper than ever. The silence she had earned gave her authority, and she used it with precision. For the remainder of the debate, her words landed with greater weight. Each point she made was followed not by chaos, but by an audience waiting, almost hungry, to see how Musk would respond. The balance of power had shifted, and both sides knew it. Outside that debate hall, the ripple effects were immediate. Within minutes, the clip of Musk falling silent went viral across platforms. Headlines flashed. Jasmine Crocket shuts down. Elon Musk. The 8th point that stopped the tech titan. Congresswoman's calm breaks Musk's rhythm. On Twitter, hashtags trended worldwide. Some praised Jasmine as a rising political force unafraid of giants. Others defended Musk, arguing that his silence was tactical, a moment of restraint rather than defeat. The truth: both perspectives had weight. Silence can mean acknowledgement, or it can mean recalibration. But perception often matters more than reality. And in this case, perception crowned Jasmine the victor of that moment. Think about it. In a media landscape, where voices constantly shout over one another, where debates dissolve into noise, it was the quiet that cut through. That single pause carried more drama than 1,000 fiery exchanges. And in that quiet, Jasmine's presence expanded, while Musk's seemed, just for a breath, contained. The aftermath also sparked bigger questions. Was this just a debate highlight, or was it the start of a larger narrative? Could Jasmine Crockett's performance signal a shift in how political voices are measured against the titans of industry? And for Musk, did this reveal a rare crack in the armor of a man used to controlling conversations on his own terms? In the days that followed, analysts dissected every angle. Body language experts weighed in on Musk's pause, pointing to the micro-expressions that suggested surprise, even frustration. Speech coaches praised Jasmine's patience, noting that her willingness to let interruptions roll past her until the perfect moment was a masterclass in debate strategy. Social media amplified both sides, turning a single silence into a cultural flashpoint. And yet, the deeper story wasn't about who won. It was about what that silence symbolized. It represented resilience, the refusal to be drowned out. It represented strategy, knowing that sometimes the most powerful strike comes not from shouting louder, but from standing firm. And it represented change, the idea that even the most dominant voices can be shaken, if only for a second, when confronted with unshakable resolve. For the viewers who witnessed it live, the memory lingers not in the words exchanged, but in the moment of stillness that spoke louder than any argument. That pause became a mirror, reflecting not just Musk and Crockett, but the broader struggle between political accountability and technological power. And so the story ends not with a definitive victor, but with a lasting impression that, in an era dominated by noise, the rarest, most unforgettable sound is silence. Because sometimes silence doesn't mean defeat. Sometimes silence means you've been heard.